We do workshops on different topics related to children with special needs, and in this case to stuttering or stammering. So we're really happy to have this very casual chat with Lori, who's going to share her experience as a person who stutters and a speech language pathologist.
So as you know, my name is Lori. I'm not going to remember this, but in the United States, we use the word stuttering. And I know in Ghana, it's stammering. Both happen to be hard words for me anyway, because S's are my harder sounds. So I'm going to take a risk and say thank you to Smiles for Speech and the Ghana Stammering Association, which isn't easy for me to say, for having me. I hope I can provide you with some advice. I kind of wanted to make it as informal as we possibly can. So I'll just tell you before we start that as I'm speaking, and I've been through, honestly, many years of speech therapy also, but as I'm speaking, I do a lot of pausing and easing into some of my words and stretching out some of my words. So just to give you some background on me, I really only started doing public speaking about 5 years ago when I became an adjunct professor, and I kept kind of pushing myself. So I started to really stutter early on at the age of 4. My father, he stutters also, but not that much anymore. He's over 80. So there was a history, and I'll try and use the word stammering. So my father stammered, and I got therapy early on. There really wasn't that much that anybody knew how to help me, but I became aware of it early on. And I started to become very scared to really speak. So that really held me back in school. I didn't raise my hands. I remember so many times I would hide in the back of the room, and I would kind of run out, or if I thought I had to say my name, I was petrified of stammering. So I would run out, or I would hide, or there were a few times where I made myself sick so I wouldn't have to go to school. So it definitely impacted me. I stammered a lot. I was always rushing kind of to get the words out. It really continued for a long time. I mean, high school, I barely raised my hand. So it's kind of interesting. So even though I hid in some ways, I worked at my father's pharmacy also, where I had to answer phones, where I had to ring people up on the cash register, and nobody really felt sorry for me that I stammered. I just had to speak anyway. There were just many situations where I would be in my house where I wouldn't want to answer the phone. I wouldn't want to say hello. I was so afraid of stammering that I almost, up until I was in my early 20s, I really stopped stuttering. It was just, I would prolong sounds, and like I said, S happens to be my harder sound. I'm a speech pathologist, which is hard for me to say. So I became an accountant and I was miserable because I had a job, which I was happy that I had, but I really wasn't speaking, and I really wasn't doing what I wanted, and it really started to bother me. I think it's so great that all of you are involved in a support organization, because I got involved in what's called the National Stuttering Association here in the United States, and it was great to meet others who stuttered. It made me less scared, which I think is a big part of stuttering. And that, by the way, was an example of a light, like stuttering, was an example of a light contact on a word that I know is hard. Um, and I think it's great. That in itself gave me a tremendous amount of support. I will tell you, I was really scared when I got married, and I have two older daughters, and I was petrified that if they got sick, I wouldn't be able to call the doctor. If I had to bring them to the doctor, how was I going to explain what was wrong? I was petrified of it. Um, Early on, again, I was afraid to ask anything. Even when I went back to school for speech pathology, I was afraid to ask any questions in school. I had stuttered pretty severely or stammered so severely that many educators had told me not to even bother becoming a speech pathologist, that I wouldn't be able to communicate. I proved them wrong. I have a pretty strong personality, and I went on to build my own private practice, and my mission was to help everybody as much as I can, because I know what happens when you can't say what you want. I was petrified of saying my name, and I'll tell you one thing that helped me say my name. I would put myself in situations to kind of say my name. So sometimes I would call up a restaurant and I would ask if there was, this is going to sound kind of strange, but I would say, are there any Lorries there? I'm trying to think what else I did. I would like practice with other people, like, make believe we were out, and, have them almost interview me and keep asking my name over and over and over. That not being able to say my name came from a tremendous amount of fear. I also learned, and this is actually in some ways an easier forum for me, because everybody knows that I stammer, and I can take my time, and I can pause, and I could stretch out my vowels to get my words to continuously move. So the fear of sometimes, as we all know, the fear of being interrupted sometimes or not being able to finish our thoughts makes us rush our words even more. And that can cause even more stammering. So that, again, that was another S. So I stopped and said stammering. So sometimes I do have to like stop and kind of stretch out my words. So desensitization is really important, because I don't know, everyone's free to comment on this, but sometimes if you're so scared of doing something, the fear can just build. And when the fear builds, the inclination is to just push the words out. And stuttering is a blockage, and then it stops the airflow. So it's important. And again, I did not early on in my life, even though my father stammered, we didn't talk about it a huge amount. It wasn't like a very common word. There weren't a lot of speech pathologists or speech therapists who knew what it even was. So there were a lot of people thought you only stammer if you're nervous. And if, all of us know, I can be perfectly relaxed and still stammer a lot. Most of you, I don't know if you know or not, but like more men stammer than women. So I was the lucky one. And I was sometimes, when I would go to a support organization, there were all these men, and I was young, and I was the only women. So again, I was just eased into my words, and I stretched out that first vowel. So women. So that's really important, I find, to just get out of the blocks. So to ease into words. I spent hours on it. You know, this wasn't just something that I did in 5 minutes. It was a journey over many years that that I found that, like, so for me, because a lot of people would say, stop, take a breath, stop, take a breath. For me, stopping and take a breath, and for many of the people I work with and I treat, that actually can cause more stuttering, because if everyone takes this big breath and they hold it in, you're going to block, because you're doing exactly what stammering is. And of course, this isn't something we're like all purposely doing, but purposely doing. That was another example. Purposely doing. So I stopped, and I stopped teaching people to take these huge breaths. I just find that it increases stammering. If you pause more, and you speak like 3 or 4 words at a time and stretch out that first vowel and do it softer, softer, always softer. The harder you speak, the more your vocal folds are going to lock. If your vocal folds can't vibrate in your throat and there is no air, there's just no way of getting those words out. So also another thing that I find that, you know, I was able to do is sometimes I do have to say to people, wait, I need a second. Wait, I stammer, please, I need a second. Because when I know and when I educate other people, then they're going to wait. I don't like being interrupted. I don't think any of us like being interrupted, but it does cause me to stammer more. Again, a lot of these things are like a long journey. I mean, I really went from like being scared to speak when I was younger to pushing myself to speak when I worked, you know, to like making myself answer phones, to making myself speak in front of people, to eventually joining support organizations. And also what's so great is, you know, I don't know what all of you do at the meetings, or, you know, I'm assuming that you have meetings. There's a lot you can do to kind of practice with each other in terms of doing like a model interview. If someone is going on a job interview, you can practice, you know, just like making a food list to give to someone else, to go shopping. It's really good to like do it with each other because you all understand. Some people find that this is called like also like pulling out of a block. Some people find like if you're in the middle of a block, for example, like watermelon. So if you're already in the block, just pulling out of it, like, welcome. All these things take time and they take a lot of practice. If anybody has any questions, please feel free. You can put it in the chat, and I would be more than happy to really help you. And again, I think, you know, everyone has to kind of like watch the whole breathing pattern, because when you get like, when you're in a rush to really speak, I don't know if anyone has a rapid rate of speech, but I used to speak much faster than I speak right now. And that led to a lot of repeating words, and that led to a lot of like getting stuck and not being able to get the words out. So I would sometimes just actually take a, like a magazine or a book and just read in front of the mirror and stop after every 4 words. So it would basically be like, you know, I went to the store And after I went to the store, I wanted to go shopping after that. So I kept doing a lot of these strategies over and over. And eventually I would bring somebody else in the room. So I might find it like, easy at first reading, but then I would bring somebody in the room. So it would create more pressure. So all these things just in combination over the years really helped a lot. And then I started helping others, and and I work with children and adults of all ages who stutter. And I learned a lot from them. And I learned a lot about encouraging them and coaching them also. No one has anything? You can ask me or comment. I'm like more than willing to answer anything. Um, so yeah, it was a journey, and I still, as you can hear, I worked in the morning, so I've been speaking for about 6 hours. So I start to get a little tired at some point, and then I have to kind of regroup. I can tell you honestly, like working situations happen to be easier for me. Social ones happen to be harder because, when we're socializing, it's spontaneous speech. So again, it's spontaneous speech. So you know what? I'm just gonna do like a short, and anybody ask anything, but since I have all of you, I'm gonna do a short lesson what I do with my adults. And I start with the vowels. And I start with the vowels because we can feel a vibration in our throat. So I'll go down the vowels, A, E, I, O, U, and we do them 3 times each. And actually, I'm going to show you on a piece of paper. This is just a piece of paper, and we start out soft and we get louder. So I'm just going to show you on the vowels. So A would be A, A, A. And if any of you want to try this now, it's taking the pressure off the vocal folds. So A, A, A. E, 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 E. And again, it's like sort of like going up a hill. I start out softer and I get louder. So E, 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 and I, and then I'll go into some words. And, each, on. But if you notice, I'm not doing like a lot of breathing. I try like, not to do a huge amount of breathing. Okay, I was just looking if anyone could ask. If anyone has like, some specific speaking challenges and they want me to, answer, I can help that. So I go a lot into, easing of the words, and then I go into some sentences that would help. I want to go to the store. He brought me a pizza. And I just keep going on. So we go to sentences, and then we get into conversational speech also. It takes time. It takes, and also I want to really emphasize that the message matters a lot. I mean, sometimes when people stammer, they don't listen to the message enough. So we want people to really hear, whether we stammer or not, our message. Okay, let's see, someone asked, I would like to know how easy or difficult do you find reading? Do you stammer more or less? So for me, I would say less, but I don't think it was always like that. I think for many people I work with, they find that they stammer less when they read. I think the reason is because you're not really communicating with anybody. And also it's a good way to practice and connect your words. Yeah, I'm really glad that you asked that.
If anyone wants to go ahead and actually be on video also to speak to Lori, we're completely open, right, Lori?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to give you all the option too, if you want to, you're unmuted, if you'd like to ask Lori anything.
Hello, Lori.
Oh, hi.
Thank you so much for this beautiful presentation. I am just seeing that your stretching and then pausing strategies are almost perfect with you. I mean, I want to know how long it took for you, okay, to really get comfortable with these strategies and really flow with them, like how you are doing now. Because I believe that for many of us on this call, we may start some strategies here and there, and we try it for like 1 or 2 weeks, and then it may not be going so smoothly for us, and would want to give up. So I just want you to give me your personal experience, how long it took you to really get comfortable with this strategies to also encourage others on the call. Thank you.
So no, I'm so glad that you asked that. So I'm going to be honest with you. So right now I am, how old am I? So right now I'm 57, which is hard to believe, but
wow, that's amazing.
Scary. So when I was 25 or so, I went to this like very intensive course. It was 3 weeks. It was like 7 hours each day, and we did this intensive therapy. And I came back, and this should kind of, I mean, I think there's an important message here. And I came back and I was pretty fluent. I didn't stammer for like a week. And then I went back to it. And I couldn't maintain any of these strategies that I learned. And I realized afterwards, or many years later, honestly, the reason why I couldn't maintain it was because it wasn't like, it just didn't sound natural to me. And I was expecting this miracle. So what I think really helps is that it's hard to just change how you speak without like doing some structured practicing. And you need to really like change how you speak, and it's hard. So I wouldn't be so hard on, everyone I think is very hard on themselves. They try and practice, or, honestly, like no matter what people do, if they want to run a marathon, you can't just run a marathon, you have to get the building blocks. So I think it's important to like, work on one strategy at a time, and it's not going to work always. And mine don't always work always. More and more, as I push myself out there. So I hope that answers it. And then I hope that answers that. And then someone else asked, oh, and I love this one because this is very hard for me. I'm being honest. Hi, Lori. How do you cope with time pressure? Because it's tough speaking at your own measured pace while being stared down at people. So I agree with you. That is hard. And I think for me and for a lot of us who stammer, we're not used to having people look at us, even if we're fluent. I know it's very hard for me, and it's been hard. I mean, because of COVID, I had to start doing a lot of my speech therapy sessions online, and I'd never realized like how much people stare. So I've had to, I do the best I can, I try and pause, and sometimes I will say, I need a few extra minutes. I stammer. Does it always work? No, but it works a good, 80 to 85% of the time. But I try and own it. What I have to say matters. I want you to listen because what I have to say matters. And I've worked with people who stammer very severely, and it's very important that I hear them, and it's their message. I want to hear their message. So I think it really helps if you can pause, try and slow down your first word, and then, advocate and say, I need to get my message out. But I understand it's hard having people stare at you because you feel like they're kind of waiting on your every word. But again, a lot of people are not very good at listening. So we have to kind of, educate them, and we have to help them be better listeners. So I hope that helps. Anybody else have anything? Come on, you guys must have more.
Yeah, everyone, we have about 15 or so more minutes. So we have Lori here. She wants to answer any questions.
No one else?
There we go.
Okay.
Oh,
Ismael.
oh, okay. Ismael,
Okay.
that's a good question. So, okay, so the vibration of the vocal folds. That was actually really hard for me early on. It got better with practice. So more vibration means that your vocal folds aren't locking. So more vibration means more air. So more air is coming up. For some people, if it's done in the right way, it will create more fluency because it allows you to combine your words together more. But that kind of has to be individually done. But I find that it really helps me. I also call those easy onsets because you're easing into words. And the next one, it's really hard when you're excited about something and just want to say it without breaks in speech. Sometimes calming down helps me. Yeah, I totally understand that. I mean, when you're really excited, probably the last thing all of us want to do is like start to slow down our speech because it doesn't really sound very natural. So, I mean, it's sort of a fine line because if you're really excited and you want to say what you want to say and you stammer, then you stammer. Nothing's going to help me. I mean, I understand what you're saying. I mean, sometimes things that calm me down are taking a few seconds, like if I'm in if I'm around a lot of people, walking away for a minute and kind of counting to 3 and staying in the moment. Sometimes it helps, but you're right, it's definitely hard. And Leslie wrote, I have observed that I stammer more with people I am acquainted to with the people I don't know. How can I control my stammer when I'm with people I know? Well, I'm going to ask you, and feel free to answer. Do you feel that you speak more to people you know? Because honestly, I used to stutter with my family more because I speak to them more. And I'm not so worried about how I speak. And I would say even now, I would have to be more conscious with my good friends because I'm so excited about what I want to say. So at that point, I have to kind of decide before I'm there that I'm going to have to slow down my words. I mean, it's something I honestly still work on. But I do think we tend to speak more to the people we know. I mean, I don't know about you, but when I meet someone, I don't know, I'm not as open. I'm not speaking as much. Okay, Elias. Okay, so desensitizing, I mean, there are a few things you can do, and this has a lot to do with, you know, how fearful you are of kind of being found out that you stammer. So you can tell people that you stammer, and again, you're not doing this for them. I think that's important to realize. You're doing it for you. So, because just to allow yourself more time. There are people, this does not help me, but I don't know if you've ever heard, there are people who make themselves stammer even more. It's called voluntary stammering. They'll like make themselves stammer more to get it so everybody knows that they stammer. I never found that helpful, but there are people who do find it helpful. But I think explaining that you're stammering, not in great detail, like, oh, I need a minute, I stammer, I need to get, please listen to my message. You're doing that for you. I think it's important to know that, because I used to always feel I was doing it for the person listening, but I'm not. I'm doing it for me to allow myself extra time. And you can like practice that before you practice that with others. And, you know, even situations that you're really excited, you can like, you know, practice that with other people who stammer. Also have them, like with a lot of the adults I work with, I'll start, you know, I'll explain, I'm going to start interrupting you a lot, because not because I want to interrupt you, but I want to get you into like a real life situation. And I'll have them say to me, hold it, wait, I need to finish and I need to get my message out. So the communication matters a lot.
I have a question, Lori. You mentioned earlier calling different stores and going into different situations, and when you were working on being able to say your name fluently. So could you make any suggestions maybe for the group of, you know, different situations where they can say, okay, I'm going to practice at the grocery store? Or is there like a hierarchy of the situations that they may want to put themselves in to start that would help them be more successful with it?
I mean, you know, I can only tell you, like, here, I don't know if you have coffee places or Starbucks. I assume Starbucks is in the United States. I don't even know. Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts, but there are places that you go in and you order coffee, and they usually ask your name. So that's kind of helpful. I do think it's like, you know, helpful. I would start with a hierarchy, like with each other, and, you know, have like one person be a waiter or have one person be at the cash register, and start asking things like, oh, you know, how late are you open? Do you have any bananas? So I would start with each other, because you want to get your confidence up a little. I did a lot of calling places on the telephone. I found that helped me, you know, and a lot of times they would ask my name.
Okay, I see one person with their hand up, and I'm actually not that familiar with how to do this, but you want to go ahead and ask Lori a question?
Oh, I don't know.
Infinix.
Oh, hold on. I don't know if this is the same one, but wait, I could hear. Okay. I would like to know how you encourage and coach children who stutter. Okay, so it depends on the ages. If they're under 7, I've had pretty good success in either eliminating it or getting it pretty mild. I use something called Litcom, which is a way that the parents work with the children a lot. I coach everybody I work with. I'm a life coach. Also, I'm I'm a very positive person. I believe, everybody can do whatever they want. Once the kids are about between 7 and 16, I teach them strategies, how to help them. And I also encourage them to go into situations where they have to really make themselves speak. And I do really encourage them to speak up, whether they're stammering or not, because I don't want them to stop talking at an early age. But I do have a, whole therapy strategy that I use. And let's see, Andrews asks, most times my heart beats more when about to speak at places when I might be called to speak, then it comes, how do I minimize or overcome that? Yeah, well, that's a hard one. So you just have to keep putting yourself out there. I mean, it took me a long time before I raised my hand to ask a question in school. I can tell you at the National Stuttering Association, which is similar to what you have in Ghana, which I think this was really, really helpful. I don't know if you have this, they have something called an open mic. And they put a microphone up there in front of, everybody else stammers also, and you can say anything. So the first thing I did was, and I was petrified, there were about 30 people in the room, even though they all stammered. I had never really spoken in front of people, and I went up there and I had so much fear in me, and I said my name. And the next time we had an open mic, I went up there and I said my name and where I live. By the next year, I was able to give a short presentation. So there is no easy way, but you just have to push yourself in it and do it anyway. I mean, even if you feel the fear, do it anyway, because you're going to feel so much better afterwards. It's better than not doing it. Anyone else?
Okay.
Okay, Laurie, I have a question. How do you encourage somebody who is finding it hard to accept their stammer, and all what they are looking out for is to get into speech therapy and just end stammering altogether? How would you encourage such a person who is just looking out for going to see a speech and language therapist to end their stammer altogether?
But you can't end. I mean, once you're an adult, you're probably not going to end it. I mean, you're going to make it better, and you're going to encourage them to get help. I do think it's important. Not that many speech pathologists, even here in the United States, honestly, know a lot about stuttering or stammering. It's something that you really need someone who has expertise in it, but your goals have to be realistic. If you're going and you've been stammering your whole life and you expect like all of a sudden by next week it's going to get better, then you're kind of setting yourself up. So when I work with people and I encourage, I try and be realistic. I mean, I can't make anybody accept it. That's up to them. But I can encourage them that with hard work, their communication skills can get so much better. and they could really start doing what they want with their own lives. And that's what's really important. So yeah, I mean, if there's someone who specializes in it, that's really, really so important. I always worked with people who specialized in it, and the people who work with me only come to me because it's a specialty of mine. So you just have to keep encouraging and keep the goals real, you know, because little by little, it can get better.
I have another question, Lori. I'm thinking about secondary characteristics. Do you have any strategies that you can share if for people that may have, you know, really intense, you know, facial grimaces or any other kind of characteristics that may be showing up? I don't know if anyone here experiences that, but I'm wondering if you have any suggestions for them.
Sure. So, I mean, as probably most of us know, secondary characteristics are characteristics that go along with stammering behaviors. So it could be avoiding eye contact. It could be, as Sandy said, facial grimaces, moving your mouth all over the place. I've seen people who can tap out the words. So generally speaking, once the fluency improves, the secondaries start decreasing also. The one thing I find that's really, really helpful is to try and establish more eye contact, because if you start like turning away, you're almost running out of the conversation. And even though we might think, because I used to have pretty bad eye contact, we used to, even though you think you're kind of escaping from that moment, it's just making the communication worse, because the other person is getting distracted by it. So once the fluency increases, usually the secondary characteristics decrease also. So I don't like specifically point out anybody's secondary characteristics except for eye contact characteristics. But I do find that, you know, once you are not as tense, you don't have a need to use all these facial grimaces. I mean, I used to jut my head back and forth, and I used to get very bad headaches. So I had to stop that because I was like really walking around with severe headaches.
Okay. We do have one person that wants to ask a question and is asking to be on video. So do you want to introduce yourself and go ahead and ask your question?
Oh.
Hello? Oh, are you muted? Could you unmute yourself? Okay.
I mean, I do see.
Yeah, I think the connection is.
Anita? Because I see a question from Anita.
Okay, let's go to Anita's question.
Okay, it says, I have been to 2 job interviews last week and this week. I stammered throughout, but I still answered. Good. I still answered every question I was asked, but anytime I am in the middle of a speech and the words are not coming out for quite a while, I don't feel confident anymore. I usually feel sorry for myself, which I know I am not supposed to do. Well, I mean, I would feel that way also. I think it's okay that you feel like that, but I think it's wonderful that you asked. I mean, that you were able to answer everything that they asked. I mean, the only thing that, you know, might help you is to kind of explain. I don't know what kind of a job interview it was, but sometimes if you just explain that you stammer, it might take a little pressure off you. But I think it's wonderful. I mean, you were able to answer everything. But I would try and move forward because the job interview is over and you did the best you possibly could and move on. Oh, okay. So yeah, it says, yes, I explained to them I stammer and they had time for me. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like you did, you did your very best. No, I think it's good. I mean, the fact that you explained what was going on.
Awesome. So we just have a few more minutes left for any final questions for Lori. Elias, do you want to come on and say a few words?
Yeah, sure. I'm very excited. My expectations have been met, and I believe that for those of us from the group joining, there's a lot that we are taking from this session. So, for instance, the stretching, the pausing. I mean, it's really the way Laurie uses it. It's just beautiful, and I am encouraged to put in more of these strategies, and I hope that for all our members, these are strategies that we can really employ to help us. And most importantly, like she said, it didn't just take a day. We would have to put in a lot of practice. We would really have to put in a lot of practice. We shouldn't give up. We should just continue practicing one strategy at a time, like Laurie has mentioned, practicing it for a very long time. And once we get comfortable with it, I mean, we can then move on to another strategy. So for me, Sandy, it's been an excellent session for me. I've really learned a lot, and I hope everybody on this call too has really learned a lot. So thank you.
And thank you, everybody for asking and for wanting to learn, because I know it isn't easy. So believe in you and believe in who you are.
Would you recommend acting classes for somebody who stammers?
I've never done acting, but I mean, there are definitely people like the actor James Earl Jones who stutters. He said that it really helped him. So certainly won't hurt you. So yeah, do it. Because I really, want to emphasize again that it's, it takes time. And I think the thing that stopped me the most was beating myself up. So, you know what, learn something new and then move on, because the more you believe in yourself, the more it's going to really help. So thank you, everyone. It was amazing.